So next, organizational structure and focus. As I said earlier on, this is the embedding within the corporation, the elements of management and coordination that you really need to have in place to be able to be successful in both attracting and maintaining relationships with KOLs. This balancing of scientific and commercial perspectives, when you think about how that actually happens within the organization, KOLs are certainly employed both on the sort of early development side, pure science side, as well as on the marketing side. And so where in the organization you manage KOLs from can really make a huge difference. At the moment, it's often either housed ultimately in marketing or in medical affairs. Although lately, as you can imagine for awfully sensible reasons, there seems to be a greater shift towards locating the responsibility, both functional and budgetary, within medical affairs rather than in marketing. But when asked about a lot of the ideal ways of locating and structuring these kinds of responsibilities, there's often the sense that, in fact, you need input from both of these groups, and that it doesn't, if it can be tied to a cross-functional team, it would be, it's often far better for the overall purposes of the organization. Coordination then becomes a real issue. Because it's very easy, even in the most practical terms, to lose sight of who's contacting the KOL for what purposes. And both the organization and the KOL can suffer. Again, as a practical matter, one of the things that KOLs regularly talk about is that, I don't know who I am supposed to talk to. I don't know who I'm reporting to. Just call me up sometime and put me on a podium and let me go. But I don't really have a sense that my activities are being coordinated from a sort of a central point of intelligence in the organization. Along those lines, we've heard on both sides that if you're dealing with very, very sort of senior KOLs, national and global in their reach, that you almost have to have a single point of contact, somebody who is managing that relationship and serving as a filter within the organization to be able to make sure that you're not overtaxing or underrepresenting the work of the KOLs. And that's what amounts to limiting distractions and streamlining and making sure the communication that's critical for this work actually happens and is both clear and compelling. Again, one of the things both sides of the fence here that KOLs and pharma complain about is that even for something as mundane as scheduling, that very different parts of the organization, when not coordinated, can make demands on the KOL to be in the same place or in different places at the same time. And that's exactly the kind of thing that winds up wearing down the relationship on both sides. So as I said, and here's just some of the data that we got, marketing and medical affairs are the two main areas that have responsibility within pharma. And although there are some others, just because speaker bureaus sometimes get involved or grants, there are different sort of budgetary lines. But it's very clear from the perspectives of our respondents that the optimal KOL structures really are, whenever possible, focused in medical affairs, in marketing or some kind of commercial, but that they have a dedicated and sort of centralized, intelligence or function around the management of KOLs, and that is also cross-functional in the way that they direct and manage those activities. We did ask, and I thought it was worth pointing out, about how some of these things have changed recently and the expectation of changes in the future. And so I'll just point to these couple of things here. I think you can get the picture pretty quickly. In some places, nothing has changed and nothing is forecast to change. And but when you look at the bigger blocks, KOLs are a very important area, and it shows in the increase in resources and in the shift to medical affairs and in the dedication of personnel to these activities. I suggested that it was perhaps best, in terms of the pharma respondents that we had, it was best to have an independent function, let's say, as much as possible, that had input from both the commercial and the R&D and medical affairs side of things, but that in some sense it was this independence that could handle the sort of franchisee nature of the relationship and still serve the corporate interests and be aligned at the highest levels with corporate values and strategies.